This RealAg Radio podcast is brought to you by Authority Supreme Herbicide from FMC. Stop weeds before they start with Authority Supreme Herbicide. This dual-action pre-emergent solution delivers extended control of tough grassy and broadleaf weeds in field peas, chickpeas, and soybeans. Apply pre-seed or up to 3 days after seeding. See your retailer or visit ag.fmc.com today.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Tuesday edition of the show. Thanks so much, everybody, for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. Also, a big shout out to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast, as well as those continue to climb, and we really do appreciate everybody downloading the podcast. I think we're going to have some news today in the bonus segment of the show that you only can get if you download the RealAg Radio podcast. You can find it wherever you get your podcast. Hey, by the way, happy Canada's Agriculture Day today. It is Canada Ag Day. Big celebrations across the country. I know that in Ottawa today, the FCC is holding their big annual event. Lindsay Smith from Real Agriculture is on site, on location, and is going to be bringing a bunch of content from that event back to all of our Real Agriculture audience, and she'll definitely be on the show on Friday to talk about it. And I'm not there. I wish I was there. I'm down in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm at the National Farm Machinery Show here with a big group of Syngenta Canada customers from Ontario, and really looking forward to speaking to a part of that group tonight. Lots going on in the world. I don't know if you knew this, but there's a lot going on in the world. And what's really interesting, to be honest, I was thinking about this morning, is some of the things that, I was speaking to audiences last week in Cambridge, Regina, and Camrose. There were some things some questions that were asked, and I gave answers, and I may give a different answer today. Things have changed. It's a fast-moving environment. And I do like and appreciate when somebody said, a year ago you said this, and I you know what, I was wrong. I read it incorrectly at the time. That's based on what I said at that time. The information we had at that time. This is a fast-moving environment. Just this week compared to last week, some of the farmers are going to hear maybe a little bit of a tweak in terms of what could happen, especially from a Canadian political standpoint. We've also got steel, aluminum tariffs the U.S. will be putting on. They were announced yesterday, and they're going to be going on mid-March, potentially. Obviously, there's an opportunity to negotiate out of that. There always is room for negotiation. But we'll maybe talk about that a little bit today in the bonus segment as well. Hope you're having yourself a great weekend. Like I said, happy Canada's Agriculture Day today, and celebrating your own way, even if you're not at one of the national celebrations that are going on. Okay, so who is on the show today? We should probably talk about that. That's kind of important. So today on the show, we're going to be joined by Ed Broshinski. He's going to talk about the canola markets. And I was with Ed last week in Camrose at that Cargill MarketSense event. Ed is a great market analyst for Cargill. He's going to talk about some of the opportunities for canola as it starts to work its way higher to the mid 600s. But at the same time, what are some of the headwinds? And how do we evaluate those headwinds and work those threats into our marketing plan? Okay, old crop and new crop. So we'll talk to Ed today. I'm looking forward to it. He does a great job. We'll also be joined by Greg Good. He's with Bear Crop Science. We're going to talk about a couple different products that they are extremely excited about for the Eastern Canadian market. And then we'll also be joined today by, well, you know what? A senator. And this is going to be fun. So we've got very few senators that I would say are agricultural-based senators that understand the interests of agriculture. And we've got a new one. Yes, we have a new one. So joining Senator Black and joining Senator Robinson is going to be Todd Lewis, farmer from Gray, Saskatchewan, heavily involved in farm organizations like with APAS. He's currently the VP at the Canadian Federation of Agriculture. And Todd Lewis was appointed or named, I guess, however you want to put that, by Prime Minister Trudeau. Remember, the Prime Minister said he's going to fill some of these empty senator positions. Well, Todd Lewis is one of the ones that's got the call. And we're going to talk to him about why he was interested in being it. Because in Canada, there's not an elected Senate. Okay, and so the Prime Minister appoints senators. There's a process for this. You put an application in, actually. And, so Todd Lewis, who has been on the show many times, and love chatting with Todd. He's got a lot of great perspectives. He's going to be in the Senate. I think he actually starts his induction, like his training, today. So this is fresh, and we're going to get his reaction on being appointed to the Senate. We're also going to talk today to Chris Davison. I talked to Chris the end of last week. He's the president and CEO of the Canola Council of Canada. He's going to talk about how some of these trade threats, how they potentially impact the canola industry. And, a lot of times we talk about, and I've been saying we shouldn't use the phrase integrated supply chain, but I'm going to use it. We talk about integrated supply chains. A lot of times we talk about beef, we talk about pork. What about canola? It also is another good example as well. If you have any feedback on today's show, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the Real Ag feedback line, 855-776-6147. And like we've been trying to tell everybody, you're also more than welcome to make sure you're getting our e-newsletter. So every day, we send out a new email. The things that you got to be aware of, the things that, to really keep yourself in the know, the things to make you look smart with your spouse, maybe your neighbors, a coffee, whatever you're doing. We're going to help keep you informed, okay? Talk to the newsmakers, look at all things from different angles, and the best part is it's free. And I know farmers love free stuff, so don't tell me you don't because you're lying. So what you do is you go to realagriculture.com/subscribe, okay? There's a whole bunch of different emails there you could choose from. There's our daily newsletters. There's our weeklies, like cattle and dairy are weekly. Machinery is weekly. We started a Mind Your Farm Business email that's all about farm management and farm business stuff. So you got to check that out as well. Lots of information there at realagriculture.com/subscribe. So looking forward to having you as a new subscriber. We had a lot of people pouring in being subscribers as of late. So lots to be aware of and understand what's happening. And a lot of people taking us up on that free offer that we are providing. Okay, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the canola market. It's been working its way higher. Now, corn's kind of leading the charge, but canola's falling in there. What is happening with the overall veg oil complex? Is there demand? What about the supply? Because we think soybean acres will be lower in the U.S. What about canola acres in Western Canada? And what about biofuel policy and its impact? We'll talk to all of it with Ed Broshinski when we come back. You're listening to Real Ag Radio, Rural Radio 147.
At Alliance Seed, our premium varieties of wheat, durum, barley, and oats are crafted to fit the unique needs of your farm. By choosing Alliance Seed, you're selecting reliable seed that enhances your production potential and boosts your bottom line. Discover how our top-performing seed products can elevate your fields at allianceseed.com or call us at 1-877-270-2890.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is your one-stop shop for everything a canola grower needs. Check out our free video series on YouTube for all the latest in canola agronomy, research, marketing, and more. Don't have time to watch? Download the podcast version of the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com or anywhere you download your podcasts. Stay on top of all things canola with the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomist, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
And welcome back to Real Ag Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Hey, manage weeds early in your canola cereals and pulses with Conquer, Goldwing, Thunderhawk, and Blackhawk EVO, powered by Duplazin technology. advancing the unstoppable superpower of pre-seed burn down from New Farm. You can find out more by going to newfarm.ca. Okay, lots happening in the markets, of course, as we get a little bit closer to the 2025 growing season. Planning very well underway. One of the crops in Western Canada that I kind of find a little bit fascinating, because I'm hearing a lot of different opinions from the audience in terms of growing about the same, growing a little bit more, or maybe even removing out of the rotation for profitability reasons. And that is, of course, canola. Here to talk about what's going on in the canola markets so that you can make a more informed decision for your farm for 25 based on what we know today. Lots changing. It is Ed Broshinski. He is market analyst with Cargill MarketSense. He's based out of Battleford, Saskatchewan. Hey, Ed, how are we doing?
I'm doing good, Shaun. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good. We had a great time last week. We were at one of the MarketSense events in Camrose. We had a good time.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good turnout, and I mean, lots of questions, obviously, with everything that's going on. So
yeah. I'm not a market analyst. I'm someone that's very interested in the current events of the day and trying to separate the noise and all that kind of stuff, and for the audience. And things change. There's things that I said last week where there's new information where I would sort of alter, provide maybe a little bit different thoughts just 1 week later. With so much noise happening in the markets right now, or news that could impact markets, how does that impact your job as an analyst?
Well, I mean, it really comes down to having kind of a core plan. Like, you start out the year, or I at least me and my team try to start out the year with a general roadmap, or we're calling it right now a blueprint for the foundational marketing plan. And you make that plan with a clear head, hoping that, things change for the better, of course, but also always having some sort of risk management strategy in place for if they turn out worse. And then as new information comes in, you always assess that against the plan. Has anything changed? Or is this just one more piece of information that just gets me a little bit further down the road on my plan? And having that core plan is absolutely important. Otherwise, you're not grounded. And every single tweet or different headline that comes out, you change the plan in response to that, and it makes marketing very hard.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Whether you're an analyst or you're planning for your own farming operation. Mm-hmm. Okay, canola. I guess, what are the variables that you're following right now when you're looking at the canola market as we're sitting here in the mid 600s for November?
Well, right now, it to me looks like the market is in a bit of a Goldilocks kind of sentiment. Right now, as far as up until now, the market was especially speculators, managed money speculators, were very much of the opinion that, wow, Canada's biggest customer, United States, Canada's biggest seed importer, China, we're fighting trade battles with both of them. This looks like it could be bearish. What if there's something bad happens? It could be so bearish. The sentiment has flipped in the last few weeks to now, what if there is no issues with China? What if the U.S. tariff issue goes away? What are the risks there then? Well, the risks are to the upside. And so you've seen managed money speculators really sell a lot of canola in this kind of bearish environment up until now. And now they're considering, well, what if there is no issue? What if it's the Goldilocks scenario and everything's just right? Stocks could get pretty tight. And that's what we're seeing now, that pivot.
Yeah. Now, based on that information, is this a time where you start to, shed some risk, sell into the rally, or are you a little bit tighter with your sales at this point, because based on what you said, there could be a little bit more upside?
Yeah, I mean, so if you can imagine that, right now we've sold ahead of this. Back in November, we made some sales. Recently, just a couple of weeks ago, we lightened up a bit on one of the rallies. And so as far as, I'm concerned, if you're around that 70 to 80% sold on canola, you don't really need to do anything in response to these headlines and political volatility. But if you're below that, if you're 50% sold or 60% sold, I would definitely be using this as an opportunity to catch up, because quite frankly, we can't, in my opinion, take anything for granted. For granted. We're seeing prices between $14 and $15 a ton, or $14 and $15 a bushel. And if we're making money there, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So.
Yeah, and those sale percentages, those are based on old crop, not new crop, correct?
Pardon. Yeah, that's old crop, 70 to 80%. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about on new crop? And I know that the drought of 21 still has people a little bit people are a little bit, I think, a little bit slower with some of their sales because based on don't know what I have. The snow's not even melted yet. What are you seeing out there in terms of new crop sales at this point?
Well, I mean, my opinion is a good spot to be right now is around 20% sold for new crop. And look, nowadays there's a lot of options to take care of production risk. And so there's no need to say, yeah, I'm sold and if I don't produce it, I'm going to be in trouble. There's lots of ways to manage the upside risk in case there's a drought. So
I was talking to a farmer yesterday and we were talking about the potential for tariffs between Canada and the US. And, on that initial list, both ways, canola would have been tariffed. So canola was kind of picked on by both countries. I sort of described, somebody had asked me, what do you think is going to happen? And I said, it's kind of like when you go to the roulette table and you're choosing red or black. It's kind of like a 50-50, who knows? And you can pick one and you may be right, but you also could be very, very wrong. It's almost like it's so hard to understand that risk. Do you almost have to sort of take it off the table, or how do you factor that in?
That's exactly what we've been wanting to do with our marketing plan this year, is saying, wow, there's some major risks and they're all political. So we don't really have an edge into what's going on in the politician's head. Of course, Donald Trump, nobody's quite sure what he's going to do from day to day. So coming into this, our idea has been to just get to a position where we don't have to make any decisions. We're not forced to making any decisions in this environment. If we want to make a decision, if there's a profitable decision, if it's an opportunity, great. Let's be open to that, use the options that we have. But as much as possible, we don't want to do anything, quite frankly, over the next, call it 90 days.
Yeah. A common question I'm getting from the audience, so I'll ask you, is if RFK is confirmed, do we need to be worried about seed oils losing a lot of demand?
I don't know the extent, what kind of power, he would have to, say, ban certain food products. I mean, the U.S. Constitution is pretty strong with respect to individual and consumer freedom. So I think it would be hard to ban something, as ubiquitous as seed oils. And a lot of people really like them. I know that there's a lot of headlines to the contrary, but most people consume them on a daily basis. So they're pretty popular. So look, you go back, a couple decades to the Atkins diet. These fads can have an impact on demand, these kind of trends. Yeah. But from a structural perspective, I think the demand for seed oils is here to stay.
The other one that I'm hearing a lot from the audience is about what is the future of biofuels? We obviously had the Biden administration put in the IRA. We've talked a lot about on this program about 45Z and the opportunity potentially there. That's there's still a lot of unanswered questions on that one as well. But from as a market analyst, and you look at this, what can we expect from on the biofuel side? Because there's been a lot of canola that's been shipped from Canada to the U.S. because of biofuels as of late. So what's the breakdown there?
Well, as far as biofuels goes, it definitely looks like the new administration in the States is cool. It's kind of cooled its jets as far as the growth potential. There's definitely still legal mandates as far as blending volumes. And so those, need to be satisfied some way or another. Whether or not there'll be growth of those mandates, that's the big question. And so that would be the risk as far as our business with the United States. But remember that there's a food element and a biofuel element. And if the legislation is brought in such that more soybean oil is forced, domestic U.S. soybean oil is forced into the biofuel sector, they may need to import more canola oil for food, right, to offset that displacement. Finally, the U.S. biodiesel market is huge, but the European market's bigger. Brazil is rapidly increasing its biofuel consumption, as is in Indonesia. And that's the thing, is that globally that trend is increasing. And it's not just about the environment. A lot of it's about energy security. And that's a different kind of motivator.
Yeah.
And it's a more sustainable motivator towards biofuels than I think the, some of the environmental causes are.
Yeah, that I was just going to follow up with that, is that, a lot of times we talk about food security, but it's the energy security part of it, which is honestly south of the border in the U.S. is talked about a lot more. It's a more part of the narrative than, say, it would be in Canada. Future of biofuel policy in Canada, and how is that different than what's going on in the U.S.?
Well, so far right now, everything's on track. I mean, there's on track to growth for biofuel consumption in Canada. You've got in Alberta, I want to say Strathcona, don't quote me, but there's an Imperial Oil facility going on that would consume, roughly 2 million tons of seed equivalent. That's huge, right? That would be a game changer here in Canada when that comes online. So in Canada, things are on track. I don't know how things are going to develop politically. I don't even want to speculate on it, but today there's momentum behind it, right? And that's a good sign.
Yeah, as I look at before we wrap up here, as I look at the chart on, say, November canola for 25, we've twice kind of bounced off that 663, 664, and we're at 652. So pay attention to that on the chart.
Absolutely. I mean, right now, just because we have a more optimistic outlook, kind of medium to long term, you still have the political threats in the nearby. You still have a seasonal trend that is against canola at this time of year. And until you get into the springtime, oftentimes through February and March, prices tend to slough off, just regardless of the political issues. And so, up here at these resistance levels, I think that we should be paying attention to that, how canola behaves. If it pushes through, great. But I would not want to, turn my nose up at some of these prices if I needed to make sales as a farmer.
And bonus question: what we talked about canola here the whole time? What other crop do we need to be paying attention to? Whether you think there's upside or downside?
I think the last time we talked, I said corn was king, and it does feel like that's the boat that's lifting all, or that's the one that's lifting the rest of the market. I mean, and it's permeating almost every aspect of the market right now. And so, higher corn acres, for instance, may take away soybean acres in the United States, that sort of thing, and restrict the supply of oil seeds in that sense. So watch corn. If that thing breaks through $5, then that's good for everything.
Ed, really appreciate you joining us here today. We'll see you in a couple weeks. I got a couple more Cargill MarketSense events on my calendar, Brandon and Grand Prairie. Looking forward to it. I know we'll see you there. So all the best to you.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Shaun.
We'll be right back on RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, right after this.
If you're applying a low-rate N stabilizer, you might be falling for a losing strategy. Low-rate products promise great results, but may lack the potency of higher active ingredient concentrations, so great isn't always what you get. Don't put yield at risk. Put your trust in proven solutions. Anval Nitrogen Stabilizer, Super U Premium Fertilizer, and Tribune Nitrogen Stabilizer from Koch Agronomic Services. These products offer higher active ingredient concentrations imitator brands can't match. See the difference at defendyourn.ca.
Looking for proven performance in wheat? Lima Grain Cereal Seeds has you covered. With locally adapted varieties bred across key growing regions, LCS delivers top-tier genetics for winter and spring wheat. In 2024, LCS farmers swept 12 national wheat yield contest categories and won the Bin Buster Award for the 4th straight year. Learn more by going to limagraincerealseeds.com. Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops. It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School, brought to you by BSF Canada. And welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. It's now time for a product spotlight with Bayer Crop Science. We're joined right now by the marketing portfolio lead based out of Guelph, Ontario. It is Greg Good. Hey, Greg, how are we doing?
Good, Shaun. How are you doing? Thanks for inviting me to your show. Appreciate it.
Hey, yeah, appreciate you being here. So Bayer, of course, is a major player in the crop protection business. Everybody knows the brand and the name. We hear in 2025 you have a new campaign called Ready for Anything. I like that. Can you tell us a bit more about it, and what does it mean for farmers?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're really excited to launch this new campaign, Ready for Anything, here in Eastern Canada. This is something we've been working on for quite a while now to just try and make sure that we get it right, get the right message, get that right feel or tone, so to speak. We felt our last campaigns had kind of run their course, and we wanted something that brought this look and feel and message in a consistent way to the whole crop protection portfolio. Not each brand having its own kind of that holistic look. And we wanted something that would really respect and resonate with farmers. So when we developed this campaign, what we wanted was an optimistic tone. We wanted something that we just, that says we don't just defend against today's pressures, so to speak, but the customers and us, we're ready for what's coming down the pike season after season, regardless of what's thrown at us, whether that's by Mother Nature or something else. It's got that kind of that never back down attitude that we think growers will relate to. The campaign has kind of got that proud, confident, it's a bit of an edge and slightly defiant, and a tougher together sort of sentiment that we think reflects the partnership between farmers and Bayer.
Well, I appreciate it. Now I've got Tom Petty's Won't Back Down in my head for the rest of the day. I really appreciate that.
Exactly right. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know what? I honestly, 2025 is about being ready for anything. Like I think that kind of describes where we are at, and some of the challenges that farmers are facing, and some of the volatility and variability out there. Yeah. And so very descriptive of what a lot of your customers are going through. So you got two products that are especially important to Bayer you want to talk about today. Tell us about them and what makes them effective.
So two products. They're absolutely two cornerstone products for our corn herbicide portfolio. The first we'll talk about is Corvus. This is a product. It offers excellent control on broadleaf and grassy weeds. It's got two modes of action. It's a group 2 and 27. So it controls some of those harder to control weeds like, ragweed and water hemp and crabgrass. It's got a really low standard use rate, which is really convenient for farmers and retails. So if you're a corn and soy grower or a corn, soy, wheat grower, this product just has phenomenal weed control, an excellent fit for farmers, especially if you're looking for that one pass. It's got some tank mix partners that really round out the label. It's just an excellent pre-plant incorporate, pre-emergent 2-leaf kind of product. So we're really excited about that one. The second one is Lotus. It's a group 27. This product is really starting to take off with farmers, Shaun. Whether they're talking about its fast burn down of weeds or the excellent crop safety, those are the two things, I hear the most about Lotus. It does have a wide window of application to the 8-leaf, and it does control some really key weeds like Canada fleabane and water hemp, hairy Galansoga if you're over in the Quebec market. It's got some great tank mix options, and it's got a recropping label that's really wide open, which is really nice. It leaves a lot of options for farmers going into the next season as well.
Yeah, like that flexibility. These two products sound like the kind of products that people have come to expect from Bayer over the years. A lot of our audience members are of course, Bayer customers using your product. Okay, it's time for the action step here. If somebody wants more information on these two products or anything else that's in the Bayer portfolio, how do they do it?
Hit our website, www.cropscience.bayer.ca. And by all means, reach out to your retailers, and they will absolutely put you in touch with, if they need more information, you can get in touch with the reps that way. If you know the reps, give them a call. That's one of the great things about Bayer Crop Science, great products, but we've got amazing team of technical folks and sales reps backing them up with great advice and expertise. So yeah, that's awesome. That's the best way to get a hold of us, Shaun.
Hey, great stuff. Hey, Greg, thanks for joining us here today on RealAg Radio for this product spotlight.
Awesome, Shaun. Thanks. Really enjoyed it. Appreciate you having me on the show. Take care.
Yeah, great stuff. Hey, we're going to be right back on RealAg Radio. And when we come back, we're going to talk to the new Senator Lewis, Todd Lewis, farmer from Saskatchewan, who was appointed to the Senate last week. And we'll get his reaction to that news and why he's looking forward to this new position when we come back. Listen to RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM.
Co-op knows your community because we live here too. Our teams are your trusted partners with a range of expertise to help support your entire farm operation. And we're giving back. In the past 5 years, Co-op has invested over $1.1 billion in the prairies through building, upgrading, and expanding local facilities. And we've returned over $1.17 billion to Co-op members in the prairies. Co-op, we're all building something for the future. Here for your farm, here for your family. Learn more at coop.crs/farm.
There's power, and then there's superpower. Advancing the unstoppable superpower of pre-seed from New Farm. Take control. Eliminate weed competition and start clean in spring. Manage weeds early in canola, cereals, and pulses. Conquer, Goldwing, Thunderhawk, and Blackhawk EVO. Convenient formulations and multiple modes of action. Add more power to glyphosate, more benefits to your burn down. Go to newfarm.ca/burndown.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147 Sirius XM. Hey, SGS is delivering reliable agricultural lab testing for your crop, soil, feed, water, and seed. SGS is uniquely positioned to elevate your business in Canada and the United States. Call them now at 1-800-952-5407. That is 1-800-952-5407. That is SGS. Okay, as promised, Prime Minister Trudeau is he has announced that he is resigning, but on his way out, he is going to appoint some vacant senator seats. And interestingly enough, something that's been on the program here quite often is on that list of 3 that were announced last week. A farmer from Gray, Saskatchewan, Todd Lewis, also a member of the executive with the CFA. Hey, Todd, how's it going?
Very well, Shaun.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It was
so,
an honor.
yeah, it is an honor. Tell us about how'd you find out?
Well, there's a interview process and application process as well. So I put an application a couple of years ago, and really nothing came of it. And really over the last 2 weeks, I was given a phone call if I was still interested in the application, and I said yes, and from there it really accelerated, and really this has come together over the last couple of weeks, and I'm surprised as anybody to tell you the truth.
Who told you that you were going to be appointed? Did the Prime Minister himself call you?
Yes, yeah, there's an interview process you do with the PMO. There's people within. Well, I guess they're not part of the PMO. They're actually the independent Senate board, and we did a really in-depth interview with a couple of people from Ottawa, and shortly after that, the phone rang. It was the Prime Minister, and asked me if I would accept the appointment.
And you were sort of like, yes, or like were you kind of stunned?
Well, I think once you got the interview process, I thought there was a pretty good chance, but really the way it worked out, the interview was at 1:00, and that very afternoon the call came. So it like I say, it was really accelerated, and I must have done pretty good on the interview because it didn't take long that the phone call came. So it was it was very unexpected, and as I say, a great honor and very humbling as well.
So in that interview, what are some of the things they asked you?
Oh, a lot of things about your past, for instance, and
well, that's checkered. That's whoa, like
past media interviews and so on. So hopefully, we'll get through okay, Shaun. But
exactly.
But no, and the things you would think about is would there be anything embarrassing in your social media presence, those kind of things, right? They just want to ensure that you won't have something that can come up later on and embarrass the office and the Senate.
Okay, so you're busy with being on the executive of CFA. You're one of the vice presidents. You've had a big history with APAS as well, being involved in farm organizations. You're still farming.
Yes.
Now the Senate. This is going to be a lot to juggle.
You're right, and really, it's with the Senate, it's something that'll take me away from I love farming. I love my farm. I love working with my family, the province of Saskatchewan, my local community. Very heavily involved, and this will take away from that. And I'll still be able to farm some, and they're we'll be involved with the farm, but we'll have to hire somebody to probably sit on the air drill a little bit more at seeding time and the combine in the fall. But at the same time, this is such an opportunity and such a great challenge that I just couldn't pass it up.
So curious, Todd, you said you sent an application in a couple of years ago. What pushed you to do that? What's the why here on, initially, not obviously now you're going to be in the Senate, but initially, what was the driver to potentially be a senator?
Well, I think, we've been underrepresented, over the history of the Senate. And, we have, Mary Robinson from PEI and Rob Block from Ontario are both have close to agricultural ties, and they've done a great job. But Western Canada, I felt was underrepresented, and also with the minority parliament, we've heard more about the Senate in recent times than really have for a long time before that previously. And with the minority parliament, there's been lots of bills go back and forth between the Senate and the House of Commons, and I thought having a bigger agricultural voice at the Senate would be helpful, and I hope it does turn out that way.
Got used to the name Senator Lewis yet?
Not at all. No. It's actually, I'm in Ottawa this morning and for the event, like you said, at FCC, and we'll be at the Senate this afternoon. So it's taken some getting used to, and I'm sure I'll hear lots of it this morning at the FCC event. And it certainly is something I certainly never was had in my plan, or I said to my brother, I said, I never really looked to become a frequent flyer, let alone a senator.
Well,
and here we are.
Yeah, you're going to find out how much fun it is to fly from Regina to Ottawa.
I'm already well aware of that. Yes, it's not much fun.
It is not good. It is not good. Regina to a lot of places is difficult. Regina to Ottawa is another thing.
That's right.
For sure. I guess, is there anything in particular about as you're about to do the intake and begin the I guess the training or sort of the educational process of the intake here today? Is there anything you're kind of nervous about or kind of have sort of like anticipation about?
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I think any preconceived notions I have about the Senate will be quickly proven wrong, like with most things. And no, it's a big learning curve, and the culture within the Senate is, amongst the other senators, I've had dozens literally reach out and welcome me to the Senate and offer their help, and so it's a very welcoming place, and certainly the staffing and so on is geared towards helping people like myself, new senators, adapt as quickly as possible. So I think if I have issues or need any help, there's been lots offered, and I'll certainly look forward to working with the 5 other senators from Saskatchewan and as well as the rest of the colleagues within the Senate.
What have you been hearing from some of your farming peers?
Well, I think generally, everybody's pretty excited that there's another voice for agriculture in the Senate, and I know. Not only the people in Western Canada, but across Canada, the different people involved in different commissions and so on, and with my involvement with boards and groups in the past. So lots of people reaching out and renewing acquaintances in some cases, but really just continuing on with what we've been doing over the last, really the last decade, between APAS and CFA. Yeah.
So Can you stay on CFA then while you're a senator? How does that work?
No, I'll be resigning from CFA. Yeah. And actually, the timing's worked out well because it's an election year at CFA. So the executive's up for re-election or for election this at the end of the month here. So that part's going to work out well. Yeah.
Todd, there's everybody that's been on a board always goes through a process. Okay, so if I don't get off this board now, I'm going to end up being president. This is one heck of an exit ramp. I've seen ways to get out of being the president of an organization. This maybe takes the cake, man. Sorry, I can't. I'm going to be a senator.
Yes, I guess that did work out fairly well, didn't it? Yeah. I've also been on a municipal council in Saskatchewan for over 20 years, and I'll be off of it as well. So that was almost like a lifetime appointment. So this is so that's worked. I haven't thought of it that way, but that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, before I let you go, let's talk some farming. How are conditions right now? And you got some snow on the ground out there in Gray?
Yeah, where really we've had I guess kind of an old-fashioned winter. Lots of snow, bitterly cold right now, and last week we between 10-day period there from over the last 2 weeks we had some real heavy blizzard conditions on a Friday, and the following Wednesday we had close to a foot of snow. So, and then more snow and blowing this past weekend. So we have snow. Certainly the shelter belts are full, and people's looking for replenishment of their dugouts this spring, and we weren't that bad condition really right around the South Regina there. We were going into the fall. I wouldn't say wet, but with adequate moisture, so we should have a good start this spring.
Yeah, there was a good crowd too, a crop production show. As much as we've talked about, some of the challenges with the markets and input prices coming up, I don't know, it just seemed like there was some jump in people's step at crop production show in Saskatoon. Yeah,
at the end of the day, when you don't have rain, you don't even have a chance, right? Or you don't have moisture, and I think that's what we're seeing this year. That between the snowfall and some timely rains last year, and of course there's lots of areas that still have big deficits and so on, and those people certainly will be looking for more snow or rain in the spring. But I think overall that's what I'm kind of getting this winter and last fall is some little bit more optimism, and of course all the trade issues and everything else aren't helping. Lots of uncertainty, but unfortunately, I think we're going to be in for 4 years of that. I don't think there's any way getting around that. So
that's kind of your expectation.
I think it's going to be the new normal. We have been down with the CFA in San Antonio at the American Farm Bureau meetings, not this week but last week, the week before, and just talking to farmers down there, they certainly aren't in favor of tariffs. So much of our trade is north and south in North America, and it's taken decades for those markets to develop, and there's a reason they have developed that way. It makes sense. So I think as this plays itself out, it's day to day at the executive level there in Washington, and it'll be interesting to see what comes next. But I'm sure it's going to be the one thing for sure. It's going to be volatile, without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've been talking to Todd Lewis, farmer from Gray, Saskatchewan, VP with CFA for now, and newly appointed member of the Canadian Senate. Well, Senator Lewis, I'm not sure if we're officially supposed to say that yet, but I'll say it. Senator Lewis, it's great to chat with you.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, we'll be right back on RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, right after this.
I'm the kind of guy who enjoys his freedom. Sure, I have a wife, kids, and a mortgage. But now I have new on-deck herbicide for wheat and barley. Thanks to a unique combination of actives, it delivers both superior control of tough weeds like kochia and proactive resistance management with, listen to this, complete rotational freedom. You can't tie this wild stallion down. Spray for today, plan for tomorrow with new on-deck herbicide. Visit your retailer or Corteva.ca to learn more.
Before you get back in the field this year, spend some time with the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com. Get all the information you need on hybrid selection, planting depth, crop inputs, and more from a wide range of industry experts. A massive library of video content is available on demand when you need it most. Spend your time outside of the field, inside the classroom, with the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Hey, with volatile markets and rising costs, now's your chance to be a part of the solution. Act now to protect your farm's future for generations with Genesis Fertilizers. Gain control and ensure access to locally produced nitrogen. Visit genesisfertilizers.com to learn more. Okay, earlier we talked about canola with Ed Broshinski from Cargill MarketSense. We're now going to talk about it from a little bit more of a deeper trade perspective and what is happening in the Canadian landscape regarding canola trade. And some of this is relative to the talk of threats of tariffs by the U.S. onto Canadian, any Canadian import. But canola definitely one of the targets of that is canola was on the retaliation list that Canada provided as well. Last Thursday, I had the chance to interview Chris Davison, who's the president and CEO of the Canola Council of Canada. Here's that conversation. A lot happening in the world of trade. One of the commodities that is very important in the Canada-U.S. trade relationship is canola. Joining us right now to chat about that relationship is Chris Davison. He is president and CEO of the Canola Council of Canada. Chris, it's great to chat with you.
Thanks for having me today, Shaun.
Okay. I guess, Chris, I'll ask you off the top. Is the threat of tariffs over between Canada and the U.S.?
I wish I could say it was, but I think realistically that would be the wrong conclusion to draw. I think we had a welcome pause to the proceedings as of Monday this week, but I think we've got a road ahead of us that we still have to navigate in terms of tariffs and just the trade relationship in general, Shaun.
In some commodities, it's a one-way trade. Canola is an example where the canola industry, because there's an industry, there's acres in North Dakota, there's obviously acres in Western Canada, there's a few in Ontario. What kind of impact would a 25% tariff or a retaliation tariff, because canola was on that list in that initial $21 billion, what kind of impact would that have on the canola industry?
Yeah, I think we can talk about that from a couple of perspectives. So let's start from the Canadian side of the equation, and you know that the U.S. is our number one market for canola. In 2023, that export value was $8.6 billion. About $6.3 billion of that was tied to canola oil, another $2 billion to canola meal, and some seed in that mix as well. So, the imposition of tariffs by the U.S. On Canada at the levels that were being talked about would have a negative and widespread impact. And that would start with Canadian farmers who grow canola every year. It would extend to companies who provide them with seed and other inputs that are required to grow the crop. To grain companies and processors who contract for that crop, and ultimately, exporters that move Canadian seed oil and meal to the United States and other markets. But you raise a really good point, and you talk about the two-way trade and the cross-border relationship, Shaun. One of the things that we know is we have a highly integrated canola industry with the United States. And the benefits of that relationship accrue to consumers, producers, and businesses on both sides of the border.
Yeah. Well, Chris, also, there's canola that's grown in the Dakotas that is pulled into crush plants in Manitoba.
Well, let me elaborate on that. So when I talk about a highly integrated industry, the benefits really do accrue at all stages of the value chain on both sides of the border. So if we're talking about the United States side, you have refining and processing that happens there. You have transportation that happens there. You have bottling and packing that happens there. You have food end uses. You have livestock benefits, et cetera, et cetera. So it truly is integrated. And the economic impact of Canadian grown canola on the U.S. market is significant. We recently completed an economic impact assessment that looked at the impact of Canadian grown canola in the U.S., and it is very significant. It highlighted north of $11 billion U.S. of economic activity annually, about $1.2 billion U.S. in wages, and thousands of jobs. So both sides of the border.
How concerned are you about the political risk that is in the marketplace, especially, as you look at the broader canola market? We've talked a lot about this increasing domestic canola crush. Obviously, there's a merger that was approved between Bunge and Viterra. You don't need to comment on that specifically. I'm just talking about the broader, crush capacity build here. If there is, because of protectionism from the U.S., if we start to see lack of ability to participate in things like, the RFS or the Inflation Reduction Act and some of the tax breaks, is that a threat to the Canadian crush build?
Well, I think all of these things are challenges to the industry and across the value chain, as I alluded to earlier. Obviously, the very significant investments that the Canadian industry made in expansion of domestic crush capacity, very, very significant for us. And I would add a really good initiative, if I can call it that, in terms of helping to try and de-risk some of our trade by having more value-added activity happening in Canada. So we are super excited about that, but we have to meet the demand that those investments require in order to realize their benefits, Shaun, for sure.
How big of a play is the fact that canola acres are kind of tapped out? I'll be honest, I get once in a while, I'll get an email or a phone call from somebody in the U.S. who says, there's a lot of opportunity for renewable diesel. Canada, you got to figure out how to grow more canola. Why aren't acres like 30 or 35 million? Because there seems to be the kind of demand out there for it. And I say it's not that simple. Is there any concern about the acres being sort of tapped out at that 22 million?
I don't think that's the primary focus at this point in time. I think we all recognize and believe that there's still significant room for production and productivity improvements, largely on the same acres we've got, maybe with some incremental acres in there. But as you know, there are other considerations in terms of rotation, disease management, et cetera, et cetera. And if we want to make sure we're getting the best from the canola crop, we need to account for those things as well. So I think there's some room there for incremental acres, but we know hopefully with technology advancements that are coming and other tools that are or will be available, we still believe that there's significant room for productivity growth.
Yeah, so from a communication standpoint going forward here, because as you stated, the threat of tariffs is not going away. There's a 30-day breathing period here, but I think we're going to be talking about this for a while, on again, off again, for sure. What's your communication strategy kind of look like here going forward from the Canola Council standpoint on this topic?
Yeah, look, highly engaged already. And as you allude to, we anticipate that to continue. And that engagement happens on a number of different levels. Certainly very important that we're collaborating with our industry colleagues here in Canada and also with the federal and provincial governments. And that's already taking place and I expect will only intensify going forward. But I think, I come back to what I said about the benefits on both sides of the border. We clearly recognize that we've got a highly valued, economically significant relationship that delivers those benefits on both sides of the border. So making sure we have engagement with our U.S. stakeholders is absolutely critical as well. We think that economic story that I alluded to with you a few minutes ago is very much in line with what the new administration in the U.S. has said they want to do for consumers and for the U.S. economy. And we are going to continue to work even harder to make sure that is well known and understood south of the border, so that ultimately we're doing our part to help to ensure that decisions are made on the best available information.
Now, we've been talking a lot about the Canada-U.S. relationship, but before I let you go, I want to ask you, too, how much political risk is there in terms of the clean fuel regulation, the CFR in Canada, and what that future looks like?
Yeah, look, I think there's a number of adjacent issues that you've alluded to, and certainly we are supportive of wanting to have a strong national market for biofuels. I'll just call biofuels policy generally. Yeah. And I guess my comment would be that in the face of some of the challenges that we're experiencing now with the U.S. market and elsewhere, having a strong domestic market takes on even more importance moving forward. So we recognize these are policy-driven markets. They're subject to changes in policy, changes in government. But I would argue that now more than ever, having a strong domestic biofuels market is really, really critical.
Hey, Chris, thanks a lot for joining us here today. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks for your time, Shaun.
That was Chris Davison, President and CEO of the Canola Council of Canada. Listen, if you have any feedback at all on today's show, questions, comments, we'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Well, everybody, enjoy Canada's Agricultural Day. And thanks so much for making our program here a part of days like today where we celebrate, but at the same time, every other day on the farm as well. Thanks so much for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio, and we'll chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you for downloading this RealAg Radio podcast brought to you by Authority Supreme Herbicide from FMC. Give your crops the 2-in-1 protection they deserve. Authority Supreme's dual modes of action attack weeds early, delivering effective resistant management and prolonged control during critical growth periods. Dominate the toughest weeds before they take hold. See your retailer or visit ag.fmc.com today.
March Madness is right around the corner, sort of like in a college basketball game. Hey, the team's in the bonus. That's where you are as Real Agriculture audience. We are in the bonus. And if you've been listening on Rural Radio 147, really appreciate it. If you're a constant listener of the podcast. Appreciate that as well. And you can only hear our bonus segments if you listen to the podcast version of the show, where we do extended interview versions a lot of times and bonus segments like this. Today we're going to hit on the top ag news stories. There's lots to cover here. We got steel and aluminum tariffs. Trump slams U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum as Trudeau slams U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum as unjustified. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau criticized U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum as entirely unjustified, according to CBC video posted on X. Trudeau emphasized that Canada's response will be firm and clear, while the government engages with the Donald Trump administration to underline tariffs' negative impact on both nations. When asked about the possibility of retaliatory tariffs, Trudeau expressed hope that escalation could be avoided. Well, this is kind of being whipsawed here. Last week, it looked like there was a bit of a reprieve till into March, gave Canada 30 days to sort of collect itself and act. By the way, where is the fentanyl czar? That I don't believe that person has been named to that position, and we're over a week now since that announcement was made. And it just seems this is the environment we're going to be in, is that it's a constant threat of tariffs. I'm watching for, at some point, you got to think prior to those midterms that Canada and Mexico are going to have to agree to renegotiate this USMCA deal, if that even saves them from some of these tariffs. This is a very unstable North American trading environment right now. And as we've been talking about on the show here, just the threat of tariffs is creating a lot of havoc in the marketplace. And again, on the steel and aluminum tariffs that President Trump announced yesterday about the implementation of them mid-March, he talked about how, listen, bring your steel manufacturing facility to the U.S., you don't pay tariffs. This is the structural change we've been talking about. This is what the goal is, not just in steel and aluminum, but across many, many different product types. You could maybe say all product types. Now, as I've been saying in my speeches to audiences, you can relocate a car plant, you can't relocate a potash mine. So it's not exactly applicable to all situations, but This is the theory, right or wrong. I think it's a good example of what the U.S. is trying to accomplish with all these tariff threats and putting them on, like they're talking about. For the first time ever, though, we've got all 13 of Canada's premiers will visit Washington, D.C. as a part of a joint mission and aimed at strengthening Canada's U.S. relations. Doug Ford, chair of the Council of the Federation, will lead the group as they undertake a series of meetings and events in the U.S. Capitol. So there's Team Canada. If I haven't, if you're wondering what is Team Canada, or this is all the premiers together at one time in Washington, D.C. talking about the benefits of trade. We'll see if they get any sort of an ear with anyone close to President Trump. The Canadian Alliance for Net Zero Agri-Food, better known as CANZA, has announced a $4 million effort with backing from the federal government, Maple Leaf Foods, and Nutrien to develop and scale tools to measure, report, and verify soil carbon, potentially unlocking new sources of revenue for farmers. The development of a simple MRV system will allow farmers to actually have the ability to receive a check for the climate-smart practices they use to manage the farm, according to Christian Hebert, Saskatchewan farmer and president of the Hebert Group, also co-host of the Truth About Ag podcast. You can hear at RealAgriculture.com. The $4 million project announced Monday builds on the MRV framework developed through 2 pilot projects in Saskatchewan and Manitoba in 23 and 24, expanding to 15,000 acres across 4 different locations in Saskatchewan. So they have 3 goals: optimize soil sampling process, develop a handheld in-field MRV tool, and 3, facilitate knowledge sharing of the MRV system. 11 canola research projects will receive a total of $3.4 million in funding as a part of the 2025 intake of the Canola Agronomic Research Program, better known as CARP. 3 Prairie Provincial Canola Grower Associations, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, are contributing over $2.3 million. Another $764,000 is coming from the Western Grains Research Foundation, while Results-Driven Agriculture Research, RDAR, is contributing an additional $363,000, bringing the total to approximately $3.4 million. One of the things I've been watching for or looking out for is, okay, so a lot of farmers are cheering on DOGE. This is the new department being led by Elon Musk, trying to cut out some of the spending fat that the U.S. federal government has. And not only have they been cutting spending, they've been cutting out whole departments. But at what point would they get to USDA? And would farmers' opinion of that change on what DOGE is trying to do? Well, a lot of times when we talk about cost cutting, it's, hey, there's a lot of frivolous spending here. You need to fix it over there, but don't worry, don't we're good over here. We're fine. Don't worry about us. Worry about them. Well, USDA is not being left alone. The Department of Government Efficiency, better known as DOGE, led by Elon Musk, terminated 18 USDA contracts, according to a DOGE post on X on Monday. They canceled programs totaling about $9 million. Included were contracts such as the Central American Gender Assessment Consultant Services, Brazil Forest and Gender Consultant Services, and the Women in Forest Carbon Initiative Mentorship Program. USDA Secretary nominee Brooke Rollins praised the move on X, stating, "Our farmers and ranchers and all America deserve so much better. Hopefully, I will be there soon." Still, I think we're still waiting confirmation on when Rollins will receive that final vote in the Senate. I don't believe that has been disclosed yet. DOGE has been hitting on some of the low-hanging fruit, a lot of the things in the ideological space, anything to do with DEI. We'll see when they get down to determining, hey, what about crop insurance? Where does crop insurance sit? I had a friend on the weekend talking about, hey, maybe one of the things DOGE needs to do is get rid of the RFS. Like, that's when rubber hits the road, and where we got some really interesting, heated conversations happening in agriculture. Coca-Cola's Q4 surprise, revenue growth and strong demand drove shares up. Coca-Cola reported a surprise rise in comparable revenue and exceeded profit estimates for the fourth quarter, driven by higher prices and resilient demand for its beverages. Shares rose 4% in pre-market trading. The company focused on expanding its portfolio in North America with premium brands like Fairlife Milk and Topo Chico sparkling water, while capturing demand in emerging markets such as India. Partnerships with fast food chains like McDonald's further boosted sales. I posted on X last week. I was in, where was I? I was in the Denver. I could have been in the Denver airport. Maybe I've been flying so much. I was in a United Lounge. And I know, it was United Lounge in Phoenix. And they've got this really cool machine that you can choose. It's a Coke machine, and you can choose what kind of Coke you want. So you can get regular Coke, Coke Zero, Diet Coke, but you can also get like vanilla Coke, cherry vanilla Coke, vanilla Coke, like, oh, you get my point. They also have Dr. Pepper. I love Dr. Pepper. Vanilla Diet Dr. Pepper, I think maybe the best soda out there. Now, cream soda Dr. Pepper is better than it sounds. It is amazing. So if you think something is better than Dr. Pepper vanilla, you're probably wrong. I just want to say that to everybody out there. Now, speaking of McDonald's U.S. store sales and earnings fell as the burger chain dealt with the fallout of E. coli outbreak hitting its domestic business last year. The company said its U.S. same-store sales declined 1.4% in the 3 months ended December 31st, driven in part by customers spending less money per visit. A slowdown in the pace of price increases across restaurants also contributed. The chain's fourth quarter revenue and adjusted earnings per share trailed analysts' expectations. Some investors had feared steeper declines and were upbeat about the company's recovery in many international markets. McDonald's says it expects to open 2,200 restaurants globally this year, up slightly from the total it projected last year. Around 600 of those locations would be in the U.S. That's amazing. Still opening McDonald's. You would think in the U.S. there would be total saturation of the market when it comes to McDonald's. That's amazing to me. Shares of McDonald's climbed 4.8% to $308.42, making it the best performing stock in the Dow in Monday trading. Overall, though, restaurants so far have reported mixed business results for the last 3 months of 2024. Chipotle Mexican Grill, Yum Brands, Taco Bell, and Chili's owner Brinker International said their restaurants brought in more customers last quarter, while Starbucks, Pizza Hut, and KFC marked declines in their domestic markets. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky today, and the hotel I'm staying at is right adjacent to the Yum Center, which is where Louisville Cardinals basketball team plays. And this is like the home of, the Colonel and all those kinds of things. So, Yum Brands, big, and UPS, I think, is headquartered here too in Louisville. Hey, finally, oil prices. When I was at that Cargill MarketSense event one of the farmers in the audience last week had asked, what's going to happen with oil? I have no idea. Oil prices climb amid supply worries despite trade war fears. Oil prices rose on Tuesday as concerns about tightening supplies from Russia and Iran outweighed fears that escalating trade tariffs could slow global economic growth. Brent crude rose 0.72% to $76.42 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate gained 0.69% to $72.82 a barrel. Both benchmarks had rebounded nearly 2% in the previous session after 3 straight weeks of losses. That's all the time we have for the top ag news stories of the day. Looking forward to speaking to that group of Syngenta customers tonight. Lots of issues to break down. We got steel and aluminum tariffs. We got Mark Carney gaining ground in Canada, closing the gap on Pierre Poilievre. I think the lead was like 25% about 2 weeks ago. Well, I think Nick Nanos has it down to about 9 points. 9 points. All because of all these, like what's going on with Trump tariffs. I'll tell you, no matter what you think about President Trump, he has an impact on domestic politics in other countries. And Canada, you don't need to go any further than Canada to see how that is impacting the popularity of the Liberals. And whatever the concern is about Pierre Poilievre and his ability to negotiate a better deal for Canada, clearly there's a little bit of an upswing in the Liberals. We'll see if this is the top or just the beginning of this rebound. As we're still waiting for the Liberal leadership race to end, we'll see what happens when the government ends its being prorogued. And do we have an election in May, or do we have to wait till October? There is lots to chat about when it comes to Canadian politics. Hey, send me your feedback. Haney@RealAgriculture.com. And of course, everybody, thanks for downloading the Real Ag Radio podcast. We do appreciate it. And we'll chat with you again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.